as we alluded already, as we record right now, there are 2 3-1 advantages in the Eastern and Western Conference Finals. Thunder have a chance to get it done tonight at home at the time we're recording this. Again, they could be in the finals by the time you hear this, and the same goes for the Indiana Pacers, who will be back at Madison Square Garden for an opportunity, the first of 3 opportunities to advance to the NBA Finals for the first time since the year 2000. And I say that to say we start with Indiana. You and I were texting back and forth. I called it a statistical masterpiece from Tyrese Haliburton. 32 points, 15 assists, 10 boards, 0 turnovers in Game 4. Pops was in the building. Triple H was in the building. Pat McAfee was cutting WWE promos. But there's so much to be said about Tyrese Haliburton, voted overrated by his peers, whatever you want to say about him. But I think the conversation that we've been having about him, honestly, since he first started experiencing a breakout in the 23-24 season was he is the pure point guard, that archetype. And it looks a little different because of his height and his body composition, but it gives you, memories and flashbacks of prime Chris Paul, of things that Steve Nash did, some sprinkles of Rondo and other guys of just that pure point guard position, and it's fun to see.
Yeah, I feel like Tyrese Haliburton really is he's pretty close to the answer of what would Steve Nash have looked like in the modern day NBA, right? Mm-hmm. He's not somebody that bombs away from 3-point range. I mean, last night we saw him play super aggressive, which that is when he's at his best. I pulled the stat the other day. I think the Pacers this season were 30-3 when he scores 20 points, which is not that many points when you're talking about a guy who's a certified all-star, breaking through to superstardom, everything like that. But 30-3 is a drastic number. They were I think it was 30-27 when he did. So that's a team that's just above 500 versus one of the best teams in the league when he is playing a little bit more aggressive. But, I don't think Steve Nash would have been the Steph Curry type where he's just shooting 12 threes a game or something like that. He still would have been a pass first player, but, he would have had moments like Haliburton did last night where he was super aggressive and looking to score a little bit more. And I mean, Nash did that in his own time too, but it really does feel like it answers that question of what Steve Nash would have looked like in the modern day. And I say that as the most, ultimate compliment to Tyrese Haliburton and what he was able to do last night. Extremely impressive, extremely efficient. It feels like he does know when his team needs those types of games from him. And when I say those types of games, I mean the ones where he's really attacking on the offensive end, really looking for his own shot first. Biggest game of his life. One of the best playoff games we have ever seen. I mean, he was the first person to ever have a 30-15 triple-double with 0 turnovers in playoff history. Not conference finals, just in general in playoff history. I feel like every week we're giving Stefano a shout out for these cool stats that he's pulling up on Twitter. And that's why he's one of the best in the business. But, Tyrese Haliburton has 11 games with 15 assists and 0 turnovers since he entered the NBA. No one else has more than 4. So, just a model of taking care of the basketball, making all the right plays, knowing when to look for his own shot and elevating his teammates to the highest level when he's doing it. Indiana was rocking last night. They are now 1 win away from returning to the NBA Finals, and Tyrese Haliburton is a certified superstar. I don't care what the talk shows say. I don't care what they're saying on First Take, ESPN, all that. Tyrese Haliburton's a superstar, and he's showing exactly why in this playoffs.
Yeah, the crazy thing too, 11 times he's done that, and he's right behind. I think Chris Paul has done it 13 times in his entire career, and John Stockton has done it the most, 14 times in his entire career. Tyrese Haliburton's 25, so not necessarily a huge betting man, but if I was to bet on it, I would definitely bet on Tyrese Haliburton being number 1 on that list when it's all said and done. And as we stay on the Pacers right now, and just as a kind of a disclaimer, they're up 3-1 on the Knicks. And the Thunder up 3-1 on the Timberwolves. And we'll be back next week to kind of make an NBA Finals preview, regardless of what the matchup is. Obviously, we'll talk about that. And we'll spend some time talking about the teams who are on the verge, on the brink of elimination this week. But Haliburton's performance was so special that it kind of overshadowed the fact that our guy, Pascal Siakam, casually dropped 30 in that game as well. And thinking about the 39 he had in game 2 of this series at MSG, reminiscent kind of what we saw a little bit of him during the 2019 Raptors championship run. And we dedicated an entire episode to Pascal Siakam when the Pacers made that swing for him. And not that we didn't expect him to do this, but I don't think we expected him to do this for this team at this stage. And it speaks so much to how he and Tyrese Haliburton play well off of one another, how well Rick Carlisle coaches, and this team that they've assembled in Indiana, where it could be somebody different every night. Nembhard, Mathurin, Toppin, McConnell, Turner. They got Tony Bradley getting Tony Bradley minutes. Like all these guys that are different sums of all. It's a piece of everything. But P Skills, man, put some respect on his name.
Yeah, I'm glad Tony Bradley got a shout out there too, because at some point I was going to sneak his name in there of just like, it's crazy to see what Rick Carlisle is doing and how he's able to use so many different guys in push the buttons at the right time in the right spots.
And they're all ready to go too.
Exactly. And that, that goes to, that's a shout out to the players and staying ready so you don't have to get ready. But it's like, he had been using Thomas Bryant mostly for the entire playoffs. And then all of a sudden he saw something in this series where he's like, hey, maybe Tony Bradley's the better person to go to in these spots. And he's still using a little bit of both of them. But, man, it's impressive to see how many contributors they have. And that's a big reason for why they are where they are. But to get back to the question that you talked about or that you asked in the first place, like Pascal Siakam, the thing that is so impressive with him is just how consistent he is. And like that's built into that championship DNA. That's why they went and got a player like this to try and take them over the hump. He's someone who's been there before. He's someone who's been, second option, third option, whatever you want to call him on that Raptors championship team. He's played this role before, and you know what you're going to get out of him every single night. He gets to his spots. He doesn't force offense. Like he's just reliable. And to have somebody like, yes, you have guys like Nesmith that can beat you, and Mathurin can beat you, and Miles Turner can get going, and the list goes on and on with this Pacers team. TJ McConnell had 3 straight double-figure scoring games off the bench. So, you know what you can get in spots from other guys, but like knowing that you have Tyrese Haliburton is going to show up every single night in one way, shape, or form, and then Pascal Siakam doing the same thing, who can give you anywhere from 18 to, like you said, 39 or whatever it was that he had the other night. Like, it just having guys like that have been there before, it's a steadying hand more than I think we even realize. And like when you're looking at that Knicks team with a lot of guys who haven't been there before, like Pascal Siakam has been one of the biggest difference makers in this series. And again, is a huge reason why the Pacers are on the doorstep of making the NBA Finals, and why they probably will make the NBA Finals, as soon as maybe even the next game they play.
Yeah, no, and it's wild too, because we were having this conversation again at work today. I went to the office. I go to the office on Wednesdays. We're recording on a Wednesday. So a lot more hoops talk that I've had. And a guy, friend of the program, Carlin Gay, got a little bit hot takey with it, but he did call Pascal a top 5 sidekick / second option in league history. Maybe not going that far yet, but the point that he was trying to make was that Pascal's play style is so malleable. And the type of player that he was, again, 6 years earlier in his career, but the way that he fit in seamlessly with Kawhi, with Kyle Lowry and Fred and all of those guys. And now the way that he fits in seamlessly, because on some nights he's driving and he's penetrating and kicking and he's creating for other people. Some nights he's catching and shooting. And most nights he's doing a little bit of all of that. And I think that is just a play style. And the point that he used to prove that was, aside from Cat, if you put Pascal in Minnesota instead of Julius Randle, they're probably still where they are right now, if not better. If you put Pascal in OKC instead of Jalen Williams, they might take a little bit of a drop off, but I'm still liking them as far as being a team who probably could go win a championship. And it's just because you trust him to do so many different things. He defends, and he's a connector, but he's a super connector because he's not just a glue guy. He's doing it at an all-star level. He's an all-star again this year. So a big shout out to him again.
Yeah, and I think like on top of that too, he's not a high maintenance superstar. Like he's not somebody that needs 20 shots a night to make an impact. And he can score from all 3 levels of the floor and everywhere on the floor. Like, he's someone who can, put his back to the basket, couple dribbles, turn around, fade away. Like he's super comfortable doing that. He can score off of cuts. He can catch and shoot the 3, which is something that was like a massive development point that I know we wrote about a ton, like during our time when we were covering the Raptors in 2019. So for him to be a player who is not just reliable in the numbers that he's going to put up in the box score, but like also be able to kind of, like you said, malleable is a good word, like change his role on a night to night basis based on what the team needs most from him that night. Like that's where he becomes one of the best, like you said, would I say top 5 sidekick in NBA history? I don't know if I would go that far. I love the strong take, but I feel like that's where he becomes so valuable, especially to this Pacers team, that he can give you something different every night, but something, you can expect him to show up every single night And having that flexibility is massive, especially when your go-to guy, Tyrese Haliburton, prefers to be a pass-first player. He wants to elevate his teammates first. Like, Siakam could get 25 shots in a night. There are also going to be some nights where he only takes 14 shots, but still makes a massive impact on both ends of the floor. So, yeah, it really is kind of a match made in heaven between those two. I don't think we ever had any questions that they wouldn't or would or wouldn't fit together once they made that trade. But I do really think that the way that they have started to click down the stretch here, especially in the way that Pascal has seamlessly been able to jump into that lineup and take him to back-to-back Eastern Conference Finals, it says a lot about P skills and just how just overall talented that he is.
Kyle was making his points about Pascal Siakam. And again, there's not much more that we can say about him. He and I have been following him since the 2018-19 season. I think it's cool to see so many domestic fans in the States figuring out just how solid he is and how sustainable and how serious and legitimate everything he's been doing since he was with the Raptors and now doing it with the Pacers. Thanks for checking out NBA Sound System Canada on YouTube. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe below and find us wherever you get your podcasts. And on Instagram, we have weekly episodes and bonus content throughout the week.